I was tied up in the abandoned warehouse. The kidnappers calling my husband. Ji Yanche, his white moonlight. Chu Yin snatched the phone and cried into it. Yay, please come quickly. My sister and I have been kidnapped. They want 100 million. I shook my head frantically, the rag in my mouth making a muffled woo-woo sound. The kidnappers only wanted 5 million, but she directly raised it to 100 million. She hung up the phone and kicked me in the chest, her eyes filled with venom. Guess will he come up with 100 million for you? Or will he just watch you get killed? 3 hours later, Jia Yanche's phone rang. He could only come up with 50 million to save Chuan. As for me, he told the kidnappers to kill me because he wouldn't give a single penny. Chuan laughed hysterically, but I slowly stood up amidst the kidnappers' horrified gazes. Actually, I was also a kidnapper. Kill her. I won't give a single cent for Swan. Jia Yencha's voice came from the other end of the phone, as cold as winter iron, each word precisely piercing my heart. The kidnappers turned on the speakerphone, and the voice echoed in the empty warehouse carrying a cruel sentence. Chu Enin Jia Yanche's white moonlight next to me was stunned for a moment, then burst into a sharp and triumphant laughter. She laughed so hard that she doubled over, tears streaming down her face. Did you hear that? Swan, he wants you to die. He only wants me. Haha. She was wearing an expensive white dress, now trembling slightly with excitement, like a blooming white lotus flower filled with poison. I was tied to the pillar with a rag stuffed in my mouth, only able to make desperate woo-woo sounds. Chuyin had admired my miserable state enough, hung up the phone, walked up to me, and kicked me in the chest. The sharp pain made me arch my back instantly. Guess, will he come up with a 100 million for you? Or will he just watch you get killed? Her venomous question before hanging up was still ringing in my ears. Now the answer was revealed. Not 100 million. Not even a single penny in his heart. My life. Swan's life was worthless. Chuin laughed hysterically, and the 2 kidnappers behind her looked at each other. One of them, a scarred face, stepped forward and said awkwardly, Miss Chu, this isn't what we agreed on. If President Ji doesn't give us the money, how can we kill her? Chu Yinin's laughter stopped abruptly. She glanced impatiently at the scarred face. What's the rush? Ye said, 50 million only to redeem me. After he sends the money. You get the money, then kill this woman. Right. She turned to me again, her face full of undisguised superiority. Swan, see that? That's the difference. You thought you could replace me in his heart by marrying him for 3 years. You're just a cheap substitute. Now that I'm back, you're not even a substitute, just a piece of trash that should be disposed of. I hung my head, my long hair covering my face, my shoulders shaking violently from crying. Scarface and his accomplice exchanged glances, seemingly agreeing with what Chuan said. They were hired by my husband's white moonlight, Chuanin, to kidnap us both and stage a scene where Jean acted as the hero, rescuing the damsel in distress and ultimately winning her heart. The kidnapper's original plan was to demand 5 million, which Jiayance would readily provide, showcasing his deep affection. But Chuan was too greedy and too eager to see me humiliated. So she unilaterally increased the price to 100 million. She wanted to use 100 million to gauge her importance in Giant's heart and incidentally trample me into the mud. Now she had succeeded. Giant was willing to offer her 50 million, but wanted my life. Seeing her triumphant expression, my shoulders began to tremble more violently. But it wasn't crying. It was laughter unseen by Chu Nin and the 2 kidnappers. My hands tied behind my back had somehow managed to free themselves. I slowly raised my head, making woo-woo sounds, my eyes filled with terror and pleading. Chuan loved seeing me like this the most. She crouched down, pinched my chin, and forced me to look at her, beg me, Swan, maybe if I'm in a good mood, it'll get Yance to redeem you as well. Oh, I forgot your mouth is stuffed. Laughing, she reached out to pull the rag from my mouth. The moment her hand touched me, I moved, The rag was violently spat out along with saliva, accurately splattering on Chu-ini's delicately made-up face. Pooey! Chu-ini's smile froze. She screamed, recoiled, and frantically wiped her face with the back of her hand. Ah, Swan, you bitch! The two kidnappers were also stunned, not realizing how I had broken free. I didn't give them time to react. The moment I spat out the rag, I shot out from behind the pillar like an arrow released from a bow. My body twisted at an odd angle, and I kicked Scarface's wrist, the one holding the knife. Crack! The crisp sound of breaking bones. Scarface screamed in agony, and the knife flew from his hand. I caught the knife in midair, reversed my grip, and the cold blade was already against the other kidnapper's neck. The whole process took no more than 3 seconds. Extremely fast. The warehouse fell silent instantly. Only Scarface's painful wails, clutching his wrist, and Chu-ini's terrified breathing remained. She looked at me as if she had seen a ghost, the loathing and triumph on her face replaced by overwhelming fear. You. I twirled the knife in my hand, the blade drawing a shallow line of blood on the other kidnapper's neck. The kidnapper was petrified, not daring to move. Please spare me, heroine. Please spare me. I slowly curled my lips into a bloodthirsty smile, my gaze passing over him and landing on Chu-yin's pale face. Now it's my turn to ask the questions. I walked towards her step by step, the knife in my hand still dripping with blood. Guess what? They'll have you call Jiayance and tell him you've been kidnapped by me and ask him to pay 100 million to ransom you. Do you think he'll do it, or will he watch you get killed by me? Chu-yin was so frightened that she collapsed on the ground, and a foul smell even emanated from her trousers. She trembled like a fallen leaf in the autumn wind. Her eyes filled with disbelief as she looked at me. You're not Swan. Who exactly are you? In her eyes, Swan was just a docile and forbearing housewife, easily manipulated. I walked up to her, squatted down, and patted her pale face with the back of the knife. I am Swan, I said with a gentle smile, the foolish Swan in your eyes who would give up everything for love. Also, the pitiful Swan in your eyes who could only wait to die when her husband told her to. My voice was soft, but every word was like an icicle, piercing into Chu-ini's ears. She trembled even more violently. No, impossible. I ignored her and stood up, looking at the two kidnappers who were already petrified with fear. How much did Chu-yin pay you? I asked. The scarred man clutched his broken wrist, sweating profusely from the pain, and stammered. 50,000. Another 50,000 after it's done. 1,000,000 to put on such a big show. I scoffed. How cheap. I pulled a black card from the inside pocket of my coat and threw it in front of them. There's 10 million in here now. You work for me. Tie her up for me. Tie her up tight. I pointed the tip of the knife at Chu-yin on the ground. The two kidnappers looked at the black card on the ground, then at me, their eyes filled with a mixture of greed and fear. They chose the former without hesitation. People die for riches, birds for food. They immediately scrambled up, picked up the rope from the ground, and hurriedly tied up the screaming and struggling Chu-yin, stuffing the rag that had just belonged to me into her mouth. Chu-yin struggled desperately, her eyes full of resentment and terror. I walked up to her, stepped on her beautiful face, and grounded in slightly. You kicked me in the heart. It felt good, right? PH. She shook her head violently, tears streaming down her face, mixed with dirt. Now it's my turn. I raised my foot and then brought it down heavily. Thud. This kick landed on her lower abdomen. Chu-yin let out a muffled groan. Her whole body arched up like a shrimp, and she vomited out her dinner from the night before, a disgusting mess. I took a step back in disgust, watching her in pain, but felt no joy in my heart, only a cold emptiness in 3 years of marriage for Jiayance. I put aside my own ambitions and past, and tried to play the role of a perfect wife. I thought that people's hearts were made of flesh, and if I couldn't warm a piece of ice, I could at least warm a person. But I was wrong. In Ji Yancha's heart, I was never as important as his white moonlight. Chuin, a year ago, I became pregnant when I took the pregnancy test report. Wanting to give him a surprise, I saw him at the company entrance, holding Chuin, rushing anxiously towards the hospital. Chuin had only sprained her ankle. As for me, while chasing after them, I was knocked to the ground by a truck running a red light. Blood spread from beneath me, lying on the cold ground. In my last moment of blurred consciousness, I saw Giant's car, parked not far away. He saw me, but he only glanced at me coldly. Then, holding Chaewin, he walked into the hospital without looking back. The child I had been looking forward to for so long was gone. I also nearly lost my life in that car accident. Later, I found out that it wasn't an accident at all. It was Chu Yin who, in order to return to Ji Yancha's side smoothly after returning to the country, bribed the driver and created that accident. And Ji Yanche knew everything from beginning to end. He condoned it because a project needed investment from Chu Yin's father. So my child became a sacrifice for their love and career from the moment I lay in the pool of blood and saw his cold eyes. My naive and foolish swan was already dead. What survived was an evil spirit that existed only for revenge. I pulled back my thoughts, my cold gaze returning to Chuin. Make a call. I ordered the kidnapper, whose hand wasn't broken. Use your phone. Call Ji Yanji. The kidnapper dared not disobey and immediately took out his phone and dialed Jia Yancha's number. The call was quickly answered. Is the money ready? Where are my people? John's voice was still so calm, as if discussing a business deal. I took the phone from the kidnapper and turned on the speakerphone. Then I stepped on Chu Yin's fingers and pressed down hard. Ah, a heart-wrenching scream instantly erupted from Chu Yin's mouth. And even through the rag, it was clearly transmitted to the other end of the phone. Jia Yancha's voice immediately changed. Enin, what have you done to her? President Ji. Long time no see, I said with a light laugh. 03 silence fell on the other end of the phone. After a full dozen seconds, Jia Yancha's incredulous voice trembled as he spoke. Sue, Swan, how is it you? Surprised. I chuckled, the force under my foot increasing slightly, and Chu Yin's screams became even more shrill. Weren't you supposed to be killed? Why? Why am I still alive? Why has the person being tortured become your darling? I finished the sentence for him, my tone full of sarcasm. Jia Yance, let's play a new game. Chuin is in my hands now. 100 million, not a penny less, within 3 hours. Deliver it to this abandoned warehouse in the west of the city. Oh, right. Come alone. If I see any police or any extra people, I leaned down, bringing the phone close to Chu Yanyan's ear, the blade lightly tracing her cheek. I'm going to carve a turtle onto her pretty face, stroke by stroke. Ah, yay. Help me. Help me. This lunatic. She's insane. Chu Yin completely broke down, crying and begging for help. Jia Yan roared on the other end of the phone. Swan, you wouldn't dare. Do you know what you're doing? This is illegal. Illegal, I said, as if hearing the biggest joke in the world a year ago when you conspired to kill my child. Did you ever think about it being illegal? The breathing on the other end of the phone hitched sharply. Jia Yan CH. Do you think I don't know anything? You used my child's life to secure the Chu family's investment, allowing your company to successfully list on the stock market. When you're holding Chu Enin at night, do you ever dream of the unborn child you personally murdered? My voice wasn't loud, but every word pierced his heart. You're talking nonsense. A hint of panic crept into Johnny's voice. Nonsense. I sneered, taking another phone from my pocket, opening a recording and holding it to the phone. It was a recording of the phone call between Chu In and that truck driver. Handle things cleanly. Don't leave any traces. You won't be shortchanged. Yes, it's Jia Yanni's wife. Make her miscarry, preferably killing both mother and child. Chu Yin's vicious voice clearly transmitted through. On the other end of the phone, there was complete silence. In the warehouse, the bound Chuin also stopped struggling, staring at me in disbelief. As if not understanding why I had this recording, I turned off the recording, placed the phone back to my ear. My voice is cold as ice. Now, do you still think I'm talking nonsense? It'll give you 3 hours, 100 million to exchange for her life. Or you can choose to call the police and gamble on whether the police arrive faster or my knife. Just a reminder, I've already backed up this recording many times. If something happens to me, they will immediately appear in the inboxes of major media outlets and police stations. At that time, what will happen to you? You're good, Enin, and your thriving GG group. I don't need to say more, right? After speaking, I didn't give him any time to react and hung up the phone directly. I tossed the phone back to the kidnapper, then dragged a chair over, sat down in front of Chuin, and looked at her with leisurely ease. Now, let's chat. Chuin looked at me in horror, making woo-woo sounds in her mouth. Shaking her head frantically, I signaled the kidnapper to tear off the rag in her mouth. She immediately gasped for breath, then screamed hoarsely, "Swan, you lunatic! You will not die a good death." Smack! I slapped her backhand, drawing blood from the corner of her mouth. "Whether I die well or not is not up to you, but whether you live or die is up to me now." I used the tip of the knife to lift her chin. "Am not curious if Giant will use a 100 million to save you. I just want to see in his heart whether you, this white moonlight, are more important or his business empire. He will come. He will definitely come to save me." Chu Yin seemed to be trying to convince me and also trying to convince herself. "Is that so?" I smiled then. "Well, wait and see." Time passed by, minute by minute. The atmosphere in the warehouse was extremely oppressive. 2 kidnappers stood in the corner, not daring to breathe loudly. They now fully understood what kind of existence they had provoked. Chuin went from venomous curses at the beginning to crying and begging for mercy later to the despairing silence. Now, 3 hours felt as long as 3 centuries. My phone never rang. The light in Chu Yin's eyes gradually died out. She finally realized that Jiayance probably really wasn't coming. Just when everyone in the warehouse thought Jean had given up on her, the rusty door of the warehouse was suddenly kicked open from the outside with a bang. A tall figure against the light appeared at the door. It was Jia Yanche. He didn't bring money, nor did he bring the police. He only brought a gun. The dark muzzle of the gun was pointed precisely at the center of my forehead. "Swan, let Enin go." His voice was even colder than on the phone, filled with killing intent when Chuin saw him and the gun in his hand. A light of wild joy instantly burst out in her originally dead eyes. "Yanqi, you're here. I knew you would come to save me. Kill her quickly. Kill this bitch," she shouted frantically. I looked at those familiar eyebrows and eyes at that face I had loved for 3 years, now filled with ruthlessness and murderous intent. Not only was I not afraid, but I laughed instead. I laughed until tears almost came out. "Jia Yanche, you really are, time and time again, refreshing my perception of your shamelessness." I slowly stood up, opened my arms, and completely exposed myself to the muzzle of his gun. "Come on, shoot. Shoot here." I pointed to my heart. "Let me see how much you love her." Jia Yanche's pupils suddenly contracted, and the knuckles of his hand holding the gun turned white from the force. He stared at me intently, his eyes complex with anger, shock, and a trace of emotion that I couldn't understand. "You think I don't dare?" He gritted his teeth, the word squeezed out from between his teeth. "You dare." I smiled even more brightly. "For Chuin, you dared to do anything. You dared to tacitly approve of her killing our child in a car accident. So now you naturally dare to shoot and kill me. Your wife. Do it, Jiayance. Let me give up completely." My words were like a hammer, heavily striking his heart. The killing intent in his eyes wavered slightly. "Yen, don't listen to her nonsense. She's stalling for time. Kill her. As long as she dies, we'll be fine. Chuan was still frantically fanning the flames on the side. Ji Yanqi's gaze shifted back and forth between me and Chunin, his expression fluctuating between light and darkness. I knew what he was hesitating about. Killing me would be simple, but that recording was like a sword of Damocles hanging over his head. He didn't dare gamble. Just as the tension reached its peak, the sound of synchronized footsteps suddenly echoed from all directions of the warehouse. One by one, men wearing black combat uniforms with camouflage paint on their faces and weapons in hand emerged from the shadows, like ghosts completely surrounding the warehouse. The chilling aura emanating from them seemed to drop the temperature of the entire warehouse by several degrees. The two petty kidnappers' legs went weak and they knelt on the ground, unable to even beg for mercy. Jiayani's face also turned pale in an instant. The courage and murderous intent he brought with him crumbled the moment he saw this group of people. The gun in his hand seemed so laughable. A man leading the group walked up to me, removed his tactical goggles, revealing a face with sharp, well-defined features. He bowed his head respectfully to me. "Young miss, we are late." I waved my hand, my eyes still locked on Giant's. "Not late. Oh woo, you're right on time." I looked at Giant, whose face was as white as a sheet and whose lips were trembling, and the smile on my face grew colder. I forgot to introduce myself. "President G. I am Swan. On the surface, I am your unpresentable wife. In reality, I am the sole heir to the Seuss Security Group." "Seuss Security," Ji Yanqin muttered to himself, his eyes filled with horror. "That the Sue family that is entrenched in the gray area of the Golden Triangle, the one that even the government has to be wary of. It seems you're not completely ignorant." I walked up to him and gently took the gun from his stiff hand. I weighed the gun in my hand and then pointed the barrel at his forehead, exactly the same as what he had just done to me. "Now, let's play a game again. I have one bullet here." I ejected the magazine, leaving only one bullet, and then reloaded it, making a crisp sound. "You and her. Only one of you can live." I moved the gun from his forehead to Chuin, who was not far away. Chuin screamed in fright, her entire body shaking like a sieve. "Who do you choose?" I looked at Giant Chi and asked, word by word. Gi's atoms apple bobbed up and down, and cold sweat trickled down his temples, soaking his collar. He looked at me, then at Chunin, who was crying uncontrollably not far away, his eyes rapidly shifting between horror, struggle, and weighing the options. This was a dead end. He knew it better than anyone, no matter who he chose. He wouldn't be able to leave this warehouse today. I just wanted to see a good show before he died, to see how ridiculous his so-called unwavering love would be in the face of life and death. He began with difficulty, his voice terribly horsero. "I choose." Time seemed to stretch endlessly at that moment. Chuin stopped screaming, looking at him with hopeful eyes. Her last hope. Finally, Giants closed his eyes as if using all his strength and uttered two words. "Choose her." He pointed to Chuin. He said, "Choose her to live." Chu Yinin's face instantly bloomed with ecstatic joy of surviving a disaster. As for me, the smile on my lips didn't change in the slightest. I just lightly said, "Oh," and then, without hesitation, pointed the gun at Chuin. Bang! The gunshot echoed in the warehouse. The joy on Chu Yini's face froze. A bloody hole appeared in the center of her brow, and blood and brain matter slowly flowed out. Even in death, her eyes held that triumph and disbelief. She thought that if he chose her, she would win. She didn't understand until her death that I hate it most when others make decisions for me. Jiayans abruptly opened his eyes, watching Chuin fall straight down. Completely stunned, he collapsed to the ground as if all his strength had been drained, murmuring, "Why? I chose her." "Why did you?" "Because I wanted her to die." I put away the gun, looking down at him. My tone is light, as if discussing the weather. "You choose her. I kill her. You choose yourself. I still kill her. From the beginning. She had to die. As for you, I squatted down, pinched his chin, and forced him to look into my eyes. Those eyes that once made me infatuated were now filled with only endless fear. Killing you would be letting you off too easy. I want you to live. Jiayance. I want you to watch with your own eyes how you fall from the clouds, how you lose everything, how you struggle in the mud and finally starve to death in the streets like a dog. Jiayance was taken away by my men. I didn't kill him immediately. That would be too easy on him. I want him to live, to see with his own eyes how everything he painstakingly built collapses and turns into a bubble. I want him to taste the pain and despair I once tasted 100 times, 1,000 times over. As for the 2 kidnappers hired by Chuin, I fulfilled my promise. I had give them the card with 10 million on it and then escorted them away. As for whether they can leave this area alive, that's beyond my consideration. The money from the Su family isn't so easy to take. After dealing with everything in the warehouse, I returned to the home I shared with Jean. That exquisitely decorated villa still retained traces of our life together. There were his leather shoes he had taken off at the entrance, the financial magazine he hadn't finished reading on the coffee table in the living room, and the orchids I planted for him on the balcony. Everything seemed as if nothing had happened, but I knew that everything was over. I walked into our bedroom and opened the closet. Half of it was filled with my clothes, half with his, with a blank expression. I took out all his clothes one by one and threw them on the floor. Suit, shirt, tie, each piece I had ironed smooth for him with my own hands. Then I took out the lighter. The flame rose quickly, engulfing the expensive fabrics. Black smoke filling the room, choking anyone who breathed it. I stood before the fire, watching silently. The firelight flickered on my face, now bright, now dim, as if to burn these 3 years of love and hate along with my already dead heart to ashes. The next day, the group's stock price plummeted to the limit as soon as the market opened. Scandals about Chairman Ji Yanche colluding with his mistress in an attempt to murder his wife and his involvement in multiple commercial crimes spread throughout the city overnight. I had precisely delivered those recordings and evidence in an untraceable manner to the hands of major media outlets and regulatory authorities. When a wall falls, everyone pushes. Those who once fawned over him now avoided him like the plague. Companies that had partnered with G terminated their contracts. Banks stopped lending, and shareholders frantically sold their stocks. A business empire teetered on the brink of collapse within days. And I, as Ji Yancha's legal wife, and the biggest victim, naturally stepped forward. I called a press conference. In front of the cameras, I wore a simple white dress, my face pale, my expression haggard, playing the image of a victim betrayed by her husband and best friend to the fullest. With tears in my eyes, I accused Jiansa and Chuin of their crimes, recounted the pain of losing my child and the fear of being kidnapped and extorted by them. Of course, I concealed the latter half of my counterattack. In my version, the police arrived in time, shot and killed the vicious kidnapper Chuin, and rescued me and the coerced Jean. Public opinion completely turned in my favor. Everyone sympathized with me. The poor woman and cursed Jean and Chu Ini's shamelessness and malice. Under the dual pressure of public opinion and evidence, the board of directors of the G Group had no choice but to remove Jean from his position as chairman. And I, using the influence of my Su family behind the scenes and my status as his wife, step by step, brought the controlling stake of the GR into my possession. When I saw Jean again, holding the equity transfer agreement, he was being held in a dark, sunless basement. In just a few days, he had become a shadow of his former self, his beard unkempt, his eyes hollow, no longer possessing his past vigor. He was huddled in a corner like a stray dog. I threw the document in front of him. Take a look. Everything you were so proud of is mine now. He trembled as he picked up the document, looking at my signature on it, and a glimmer of spirit finally appeared in his turbid eyes, a spirit of extreme anger and unwillingness. Swan, what a vicious heart you have. He roared, trying to pounce on me, but was held back by the chains. Vicious. I laughed, still far from being as vicious as you. I'm just taking back what rightfully belongs to me. No, the GC Corporation is mine. I built it from the ground up. He seemed like a madman. Is that so? I slowly crouched down, meeting his gaze. Have you forgotten who gave you your first capital to start your business? G.I. Yanch's roar came to an abrupt halt. It was my dad, seeing how much I loved you and insisted on marrying you. He secretly gave you $5 million as seed money without my knowledge. Your company's first big project almost went bankrupt because of a broken capital chain who helped you smooth things over behind the scenes and brought an investment. It was my brother. He felt sorry for me suffering with you and used the Su family's connections. Jiayan Che. Without the Su family, you are nothing. Your so-called business empire is nothing more than built on my family's love for me. And you used that love to hurt me, to betray me. You ruined everything of mine. Now I'm just taking it back. Jiayance was completely stunned. He stared at me with his mouth open as if he was seeing me for the first time. So the success he was so proud of. The myth of him, starting from nothing, was just a joke from beginning to end. He was just a pathetic wretch who succeeded by relying on his wife's family support. This realization was more painful than killing him. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell straight backward. I watched him coldly without a trace of sympathy. Live well. Jiayan Che. The show has only just begun. I didn't let Jiayance die. I had people heal him and then throw him into the most chaotic area of the Golden Triangle. There is no law, no order, only the most primitive survival of the fittest. The once high and mighty CEO was less than a dog there. He would be beaten, humiliated, and fight wild dogs for a moldy bun. He will use the rest of his life to experience the taste of hell. That is the best punishment for him. After taking over the GC Corporation, I made sweeping reforms. First, I purged all of Ganch's old subordinates and confidants. Then, I renamed the company Su Corporation. I am no longer Swan, the one hiding behind a man. I am the helmsman of Su Corporation, CEO Su. I began to gradually whitewash the Su family's businesses in the gray area and merge them with the Su Corporation's business. This is a huge project, but I have the patience and means. My schedule is packed every day with meetings, negotiations, and contract signings. Business is a panacea for everything. It allows me no time to think about the painful past. Days passed, and under my leadership, Su Corporation flourished, even more glorious than when John C. was in charge, and I have become a legendary figure in the business world. People only know that I am decisive and ruthless, but no one knows my past. That day, I had just finished a multinational video conference when my secretary knocked and came in. CEO Su, a Mr. Chin is looking for you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says you will definitely see him. Surnamed Chin. A face as gentle and refined as jade flashed through my mind. Let him in. A moment later, a man in a white coat and gold-rimmed glasses walked in. He saw me, smiled slightly, his eyes crinkling. Swan, long time no see. It was Chin Si, my senior in university, and also my former pursuer. He's a top surgeon, and if I hadn't plunged head first into the fire pit, that was Jia Yenche. Perhaps. No. Perhaps. Senior Chen. I stood up and extended my hand towards him. What wind blew you here? He took my hand, released it quickly, and scanned my office before his gaze settled on me. I saw the news and am happy for you. His voice was gentle. Thank you. I gestured for him to sit on the sofa. Would you like something to drink? No, thank you. He shook his head, his expression turning serious. I came today to tell you that Giants has escaped. The hand holding my coffee cup paused slightly. Escaped? Yes. Chini nodded. He escaped from the Golden Triangle about half a month ago. Our people have been tracking his whereabouts, but his counter-surveillance skills are strong, and he's managed to evade us several times. It wasn't until yesterday that we found out he had already smuggled himself back into the country. I put down my coffee cup, my brow furrowed. I underestimated him. To be able to survive in that kind of place and successfully escape. Jian does indeed have some skills. What does he want to do by coming back? Seek revenge on me. I sneered. A homeless dog with nothing. What does he have to take revenge with? I'm afraid it's more than just revenge. Chin-sis' expression was even more grave. We found out that after returning to the country, he contacted someone. Who? Chuin's younger brother, Chu Fong Chuang. I remember him. A spoiled playboy, just like his sister. Stupid and malicious. After Chuin's death, the Chu family also quickly declined due to being implicated. Chu Fong should hate me to the core. Jia Yan's getting mixed up with him is definitely up to no good. What do they want to do? I asked. I don't know. Chin Si shook his head, but according to intelligence, they've recently been buying a batch of high-powered explosives on the streets at high prices. Explosives? My heart sank. It seems they want to fight me to the death. I understand. My face was grim. Thank you, Senior Chin. I owe you one between us. There's no need to say that. Chin Si looked at me, his eyes filled with a hint of concern. Swan, you must be careful. Ji is a mad dog now, capable of anything. I understand. After seeing Chini off, I immediately called the Wu. Find out the whereabouts of Ji and Chuang. Use all available resources. I need to know where they are and what they're planning within 24 hours. Yes, miss. Hanging up the phone, I stood before the massive floor-to-ceiling window, gazing at the bustling city beneath the afterglow of the setting sun, painted the sky a magnificent blood red. The storm is gathering. Jia Che, you better not disappoint me. I'm waiting for you to walk right into my trap. Giant was more patient than I had imagined. For 3 consecutive days, no news came from O. Qi and Chuang had vanished like smoke, leaving no trace. This gave me a bad feeling. When things are abnormally quiet, something wicked this way comes. The deeper they hid, the greater their scheme must be. The 4th day was the anniversary of the death of the child I lost. In previous years, I would lock myself at home on this day, not going anywhere. But this year, I decided to go see him. I led all my appointments and drove alone to the cemetery in the suburbs. I erected a small cenotaph for him. There was no name on the tombstone, only the character in meaning peace. I hoped that he could be safe and sound in his next life. I gently placed a bouquet of white daisies in front of the tombstone and brushed away the dust with my hand. Baby, Mommy's here to see you. My voice was a little choked. No matter how strong or unbreakable I become, he will always be the softest, most painful place in my heart. I squatted in front of the tombstone, chatting with him about everything. I told him about my recent work and the funny things I encountered as if he was still by my side. Just as I was about to leave, a chilling voice suddenly sounded behind me. Swan, you actually have the nerve to come and see him. My body stiffened and I turned around abruptly. Jia Yanche. He was wearing a black hoodie and a mask revealing only a pair of bloodshot, venomous eyes. He was even thinner and more sinister than the last time I saw him, like a walking corpse crawling out of hell. In his hand, he held a black remote control. My heart leaped and my eyes instinctively scanned the surroundings under a few large trees in the distance. I saw disturbed soil, explosives. They had buried explosives here. You're finally willing to show yourself. I slowly stood up looking at him coldly. Of course, I have to come out. Jia Yanche laughed, his laughter and unpleasant. I want to watch you go down and accompany Mayan along with your bastard. Bastard. My eyes turned cold. Jia Yanche, that was your child too. My child. He sounded like had heard a joke. Don't forget, we had been sleeping in separate rooms for 3 months when you got pregnant. You know who fathered that bastard. I was stunned. Separate rooms. Yes, we were indeed having a cold war back then, sleeping in separate rooms. But once he was drunk and went into the wrong room. And that one time was when I got pregnant. But judging from what he's saying now, he doesn't remember it at all. Or is it that he simply refuses to acknowledge it? Today, they'll reunite your family of 3 in the afterlife. Jia Yance laughed maniacally, raising the remote control in his hand. Goodbye, my dear ex-wife. He pressed the red button. I closed my eyes. The expected explosion did not occur. Jia Yencha's laughter also came to an abrupt halt. He looked at the remote in his hand in disbelief and pressed it frantically several more times. Still no response. What's going on? Why? Looking for this. A lazy voice came from the woods behind him. Chu was tossed out of the woods like a chicken, landing face first in the dirt. A Wu and a few of his men walked out holding several signal jammers and a pile of detached detonator wires. Mississippi, we have completed our mission. Yu Wu nodded at me. Jia Yance was completely dumbfounded by the scene before him. No, impossible. How did you find out? From the moment you smuggled yourself back into the country, your whereabouts have been under my control. I walked towards him step by step, including your contacting Chu phone, buying explosives, and your entire plan for today. The reason I haven't touched you is that I've been waiting for you to reveal all your trump cards. I took the now useless remote control from his hand and gently crushed it into pieces before his eyes. Now you've played all your cards. It's my turn. Ji Yanche looked at me, the madness in his eyes receding, replaced by endless despair and fear. He suddenly turned and ran towards the outside of the cemetery like a madman. Trying to run, a Wu made a gesture, and 2 figures darted out like lightning, pinning Ji Yanche to the ground, one on each side. He struggled in vain like a dying fish. I walked up to him, looking down at him condescendingly. Jia Yanche, you shouldn't have under any circumstances made a move here. This is the resting place of my child. You have disturbed him. My voice was calm, but the murderous intent in my eyes was so intense that it could not be dispelled. So, you stay here and keep him company. From Os waist, I pulled out a military knife. Then, under Jia Yanche's horrified gaze, I plunged the knife straight into his heart. Blood instantly stained this pure land red. He twitched a few times, the light in his eyes quickly fading. Even in death, he stared fixably at me, his mouth opening and closing as if he wanted to say something. But I had no interest in listening. I pulled out the knife, wiped the blood off on his clothes, and returned it to Ah. Clean it up. Yes, I didn't look at his corpse again, turned around, and walked out of the cemetery. The sky had cleared up at some point. Sunlight pierced through the clouds, showering down on me, warm and comforting. I looked up at the sky, as if seeing an angelic baby smiling at me. Baby, rest in peace. All those who hurt us have paid the price. Mom will live on well with your share, too.